It's December 22nd, 2018. So this is, or was, my home for the past 13 months. That pretty much is where I lived every night since November of last year. Yeah, so doing a long haul trip on the bike, you gotta have a good home. Because believe me, after a long day's ride, it's nice to have a nice place to sleep in. So that was what I used, the big Agnes Seedhouse tent, which was just big enough to fit me. I'm not the smallest guy in the world. I'm about 6'1", I'm $190 and change. So, but it was just the right length and small enough, because you don't want to have, I think, too big of a tent, because you got to carry it all that time. Plus, just finding wild camping spots. So I wild camp all the way through, and finding them is much easier when you have a smaller tent, because you can kind of just, squeeze into small places and whatnot. So I do think having a small tent is actually a good thing, even though it would be nice to have more room. What can you do? Also, a good thing about this that I always think is great for tents, or is a big deal breaker for me, is you can have it as a standalone. So if I ever found a spot and I couldn't peg in, so say there's no ground, I could still set up the tent, so I could technically sleep on concrete if need be. Because sometimes when you're it's late at night and it's dark and you need to find a spot, and your only option is to sleep on pavement somewhere, which I did a select few times, then it's good to have a tent that can stand alone without pegging in. So that was a big thing for me. But yeah, I used this tent on my world tour as well, all the way up till I hit New Zealand, and then they confiscated it in New Zealand. Because, by the way, if you ever go to New Zealand, make sure everything's spick and span and clean, because I remember coming from Sydney and I had I got rocked by mosquitoes in Sydney, and so in my tent, and I had blood in there, stains because of the mosquitoes. And then when I went to New Zealand, they're like, definitely not getting in, this needs to be fumigated, and if you want that done, it's going to take 2 weeks and cost you a couple $100. So basically in New Zealand many years ago, I had to hand it over to the customs in New Zealand. So but yeah, for most of that trip and all of Africa and Europe, I used the big Agnes Seedhouse. Totally recommend it. It's durable. It's held its own. I mean, the zippers eventually are gonna break on you probably, but so what I did was I just did a hack job of hand sewing Velcro on it, so it worked. I did that in Morocco finally after my tent got rocked in the Sahara, because all those sand particles get into the zipper, and I'm never good at maintaining things. I just I'm stupid. But yeah, so what else? The pole, which I mean it makes sense, everything's gonna have wear and tear. So to be honest, like I say, it lasted me I could still use the tent. I do need a new pole though. It did snap, and eventually just broke down on me. I could still make it work, but I should probably get a new pole. Yeah, so that was my home, and I say it's good because it fit nice and snug on the back on my rack, and it didn't take up too much space, and it was lightweight. So those are all good things when you're doing a big ass bicycle tour. And I mean, the cost was, it's not cheap again, but what is, when you're doing big trips like this, I guess. So it cost me, I think $250 50, 60, 70 pounds, I think, all told. Just, you know, so $300 something, I don't know, which is pretty good. I mean, that was my home. It saved me so much on accommodation, I'll say that. And made wild camping quite easy because I didn't have to look too far to find a suitable spot to just, you know, pitch the tent. So yeah, big Agnes Seedhouse tent. I say it's a good one. So get it if you're going on a bicycle tour.